you want to mention Operation Stone Garden?
I guess Operation Stone Garden, again, is a similar way of forcing local agencies to engage in enforcing immigration law. Operation Stone Garden just funnels federal resources for enforcement to local law enforcement agencies who are participating in enforcing the border or ostensibly the war against drugs.
Like I said, I want to cruise through. If you have any questions, we can get those after, because I think there's some more important stuff coming up. This is just a map of types of 1070 copycat legislation. This is not referring to the bill that Utah just passed. It was referring to the other Sandstrom piece, right? But I would argue Utah should be a red piece right there, showing where the bill remains active, because the piece we got actually does require the law enforcement to ask and make their decision on lower crimes, right? At a certain crime, felony levels, and I can't remember which misdemeanors. Some of y'all might know more. They're required to check legal status. Lower, it's up to them. Police discretion, which is something we can mention for Arizona as well. So this is just showing a spread of that. This is about SB 1070. This quick tidbit, the term sanctuary city, that's kind of a complex thing as well. The term sanctuary city has been thrown at a lot of different cities for a lot of different reasons, starting in the 1980s. That term doesn't necessarily in of itself have any legal meaning. Sometimes it does. Sometimes it's more just a culture we're talking about. Sometimes it's a specific policy on a local level saying, we, as the city council, we say that we're not using any of our funds for federal enforcement, i.e. immigration. Or we make it illegal for our workers, our local, what would that be, like, people in the courthouses, for example, to ask about someone's legal status. We make that illegal. Things like that have been happening since the 1980s. That doesn't mean you're in a sanctuary city per se. That actually is just one piece that is getting drowned out by the bigger pieces. Some of the most famous sanctuary cities were the first ones to implement secure communities. So Houston, for example. Houston has been known as a sanctuary city. Houston was the first one to implement secure communities, meaning people aren't in a sanctuary spot. People are getting their fingerprints ran through a database. People are getting deported. So I really want to drive that home and debunk that idea that a sanctuary city means you're safe. It doesn't mean that. They're good attempts. They have been good attempts in the past. Some still remain. It's a good fight. But actually most state and federal legislation dwarfs those and trumps those. So if the first part of the presentation, if there's anything to remember from this barrage of information, we're just rattling at you. I know it's hard, I'm sorry, we're way too passionate and way too detailed about this really, really vast and complex set of issues. The first part, record deaths in the desert. People are dying at record rates. We want to drive anything home from this. Increased criminalization means people are getting deported at unprecedented rates. Before our change in hope and blah, 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 Obama, we had record deportations after the Bracero program ended, right? When that policy changed, everyone got kicked back to Mexico. The first president to beat that record was President Obama. So last year we had right under 400,000 people being deported in the United States, a record number, which was actually a record he beat of himself the year previous. So this is a bit about secure communities. Somebody said Houston was the first one to do it, so sanctuary city doesn't mean a lot. Police discretion is really interesting. Police discretion will start affecting your state when this law goes into practice, because it means the police are allowed, if they want to, right? They get discretion to check on status, whether they're required to or not. This is another way around some of these tricky laws. There's many ways for our different enemies in blue and other colors of badges to hold hands and to kiss. They've done that through a number of things, and police discretion is one of them. They can just bypass and completely circumvent the whole sphere of the legislature, right, or having to go through a bill. Because in Arizona, what we've seen is we're within 100 miles of the border. We're in Tucson and we're there, meaning Border Patrol, in their sphere of activity, can ask and can work all the way up to that range and ask people, it's fine. So yeah, they can ask about people's legal status. So we don't need a 287G law in Tucson. We don't have to have that. The police can use their discretion, and if they think that someone might be at risk of that, they can call Border Patrol and Border Patrol can come. Now they deny, or at least have been denying until pretty recently, that they were doing this. But it's well documented, and that's what's happening. They don't need to go through any bill, they can just do it. It's their discretion. So you've been seeing ICE, Border Patrol, and the Tucson Police Department, as well as many other cities close to the border, collaborating for a very long time. SB 1070 was nothing new. SB 1070 wasn't the issue, right? It made it worse in some ways, there were some awful parts of it, but what people were in an uproar about with SB 1070 was happening for a very long time before, and it's still happening today. And I guess that's a worthwhile point to mention, because I don't want to spend time on it. The injuncture didn't stop most of the bill, it stopped a few pieces. And the rest of it that it might have stopped is happening anyway through them bypassing this, right? Through different programs. So it's, it actually is important symbolically, I would say, but it's really not the issue that we should all be focusing on. The criminalization is happening through other means. Yeah, just quick, we can talk on the murderous and awful, pernicious nature of our Border Patrol as an institution and their connections with white supremacists. I'm sure you've all heard a number of these. These are just a few cases we've thrown up there, people being killed on the border. I'm sure a lot of you heard about the 15-year-old who was shot in the back. You know, that got a lot of coverage. There's a lot of connection as well with white supremacists burning people, specifically where we work. A family was killed in Arivaca when these white supremacists thought they were foiling a narcotics operation. Went into a home and just, they killed the mother and the daughter, right?
No, they killed the father and a daughter, and the mother was also shot.
Okay. Thanks. Anyway, this is the one I was referring to, Sergio, 15-year-old student. This got a lot of attention in 2010. These figures are old. This is the part we want to transition into the monetary reason that a lot of this is happening. You can basically triple or quadruple a lot of these figures. This came from a presentation we kind of doctored up. Our friend made it in 2007. We didn't update the numbers. But a lot of money is being made off this whole thing. A lot of people act like it's very cryptic or enigmatic, right? Like, why is this happening? Who's to gain? Or, you know, you hear the right talking about this broken system. We're not actually kicking people out. And you hear the left, including what we just did to make a point, saying, well, the wall's not working. The wall's not working. People are still coming. When we would argue that that's a good thing and that these territories are arbitrary anyway, right? But we have those arguments, and that's actually not the point. What we want to get across economically is it is working, meaning people are profiting and people are being exploited. The system is working exactly the way it's intended to work. We have created massive industries. Not just the prison industrial complex is burgeoning, but what we call the Homeland Security industrial complex is burgeoning. So that's through a lot of different companies, right? You've got everything down to transportation, Wackenhut, which is now bought out by Geo Group, which is one of the biggest private prisons. You've got Elbit, who built the actual wall, who also built the wall in Palestine, right? Some real concrete connections there. You've got Boeing, that's it. You've got Boeing, who built the virtual fence, right? You have not only the government institutions like Border Patrol, like ICE, you have plenty of other groups who are making money. You have Sodexo, who provides the food to the private prisons. There's a lot of money being made off this circle that's happening. And you've got a labor force that you are keeping down. You are discriminating, you're keeping submissive. And that's also being reinforced by the white supremacist culture that we're just cultivating through this legislation. So it's all actually working. I mean, I don't understand what people say when they say, like, I don't get why this isn't happening. It's working. The US government, in my humble opinion, is not trying to keep people out. They're trying to control who comes and when and how. They're trying to control when they can be deported. They're trying to control how people work and their rights as workers. People are making money all the way across, and it's working perfectly. I mean, it's really not that big of a failure as some people would like to say.